Well, Ukraine says Russia has attacked residential areas in Odesa. Ukraine's main grain port has been repeatedly targeted since Russia pulled out of the Black Sea grain export deal last year. Well, we're now joined by Daniel Hawkins, who is in Moscow. And Daniel, in regards to the Russian military plane, there have been statements from both sides over the last 24 hours. But there are still far more questions than answers right now, aren't there?
Indeed, and of course facts being the key word there, as said by the Ukrainian president, and they're hard to come by right now. We understand, of course, the Russian position was clear in the immediate aftermath of this crash, laying the blame on Ukraine for what happened. We understand that in the last couple of hours, the black boxes have also been recovered by investigators from the scene. They could shed some more light on what exactly happened yesterday morning over the skies of Belgorod. Now, Kiev has remained rather hesitant to confirm or deny any involvement in this crash, though the picture has been emerging over the last 24 hours, building up from Ukrainian media statements, which were published and some of which were withdrawn by statements from the president, the general staff, that Ukraine may have had some sort of involvement in this plane being shot down. That will be shown by the investigation. Of course, if that is established, the question then is how and why this could have happened. And that's where Ukraine blames Russia, as we heard there, saying that Russia had responsibility for the safety of these prisoners and failed in its obligations to protect them. Now, today, the Kremlin echoed President Zelensky's words, also calling for what it described as an act of a crime by Kiev, calling for an international investigation. Sergei Lavrov, Russian foreign minister's calls yesterday for an emergency UN Security Council session were rejected. That is now due to take place tomorrow. And that's where we're likely to see both sides present their version of events and hopefully some evidence from both sides as well to back up their claims and counterclaims about exactly what happened.
And Daniel, the Kremlin has since said future prisoner swaps could actually be in doubt. What more do we know about all of this?
Well, just yesterday, Russian officials were, in their extremely angry rhetoric, said that any sort of negotiation with Kiev was basically off the table after this crash. And that was partly echoed by the Kremlin spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, this morning, who said that it's unclear how this incident is going to affect future prisoner swaps. Subsequently, Russia's chair of the Defense Committee, Andrei Kartopolov, then said just in the last couple of hours that negotiations about prisoner swaps would continue because Russia simply had no other choice but to talk to Ukraine to bring their prisoners home. Now, Peskov also said these exchanges must happen in silence, alluding to the very complex process, the very lengthy negotiations that happen on all levels to bring prisoners home. Russia, of course, took the unusual step yesterday of releasing those prisoner lists they said were on board that plane, presumably to back up their version of events. And there have been many prisoner exchanges, of course, since the start of the conflict, pretty much. The biggest one, around 200 soldiers from both sides sent home around the new year, indicating a positive dynamic in these negotiations. But we understand thousands remain on both sides. And this incident is going to have the families of those POWs very worried about the future of their loved ones.
Indeed. Thanks so much, Daniel. Daniel Hawkins for us there in Moscow.